I'd urge all of you to think about memorizing at least bits and pieces of what you're performing. This could be things like difficult page turns, even if you have a page turner on stage with you, whether that's a human or a device. Do your best to prepare as if you're going to only have one opportunity to work with the soloist or work with the full ensemble or director. It doesn't matter what kind of music you're playing, you need to be aware of what's going on in the ensemble around you. Hey, welcome to Pianist Academy. I'm Charles Stepanek. This is the first video in a series about preparation for a collaborative concert, and I'm using specific details about my upcoming performance with tubist Patrick Sheridan as real-world examples to help illustrate the topics that we cover. Today, what I think are the 5 most important things to know about being a collaborative pianist. I think this is particularly important as we come out of the pandemic and enter back into the world of live music and more in-person collaboration again. So, diving straight in. Number 1 is listen and respond. Look, I'm gonna be blunt today, and in every video on this channel, I have met and worked with too many pianists who don't listen or respond to the other musicians they're performing with. Literally, I've watched a soloist take time and breathe while making eye contact with their pianist, only to have the pianist never look up, never hear the breath, seemingly have no idea what's happening except in their own heads. It doesn't matter what kind of music you're playing, you need to be aware of what's going on in the ensemble around you and be ready for things to not necessarily be exactly the way you practiced when you're alone. If you've done that before or you do that now, stop it. Whew, okay, we got that one out of the way. Now moving on to number 2. The realities of little or no rehearsal time. The last time I had more than 2 rehearsals for a program that was over an hour in length was about 7 years ago, working with a number of local graduate students. The time before that I had more than 2 rehearsals was all the way when I myself was a grad student. If you're in school, please realize the extraordinary luxury you have if you can rehearse week after week for months prior to a concert or a recital. In most professional situations, I've found that 1 or max 2 rehearsals is the norm. For my upcoming concert with Pat Sheridan, I'm expecting to have a single rehearsal, probably the day before the concert. Even when I worked with the Grammy-winning Phoenix Chorale, where the vocalists had many rehearsals over the course of weeks, I, as the pianist, was brought in for a single rehearsal just a few days prior to the first of a series of concerts. My suggestion is, do your best to prepare as if you're going to only have one opportunity to work with the soloist or work with the full ensemble or director. You don't necessarily have to listen to this advice if you work for an opera company or a symphony, or if you aspire to something like that. Things are much different there, but at least in my experience in the world of soloists, 1 rehearsal is normal, 2 is a luxury, 3 or more is unheard of. Let's pause for a brief message from today's sponsor, me. If you're liking this video, please give it a thumbs up, ding that notification bell, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Okay, back to the video. Number 3, to memorize or not to memorize? That is the question. Or is it? It's of course common practice that collaborative pianists are allowed to perform with the score in front of them, but does that mean that we should neglect memorization? I think not. Now, I'm not saying to walk out and actually perform without the music in front of you. In many cases, the pianist is the only performer on stage that has music in front of them for the whole ensemble. I'm thinking things like trios and quartets and quintets here. And vocalists, I'm sorry singers, but vocalists sometimes have the habit of dropping beats or rephrasing things in the moment in ways that we just can't predict beforehand. So for these reasons, we must absolutely have the music in front of us. But I'd urge all of you to think about memorizing at least bits and pieces of what you're performing. This could be things like difficult page turns, even if you have a page turner on stage with you, whether that's a human or a device. That could be very difficult passages that you need to be focused on your hands in order to execute, not distracted by the notes on the page. It could be situations where you must maintain eye contact with the soloist or with the director, and you can't risk looking down at your hands for fear of missing your cue. These are all great reasons to have important bits and pieces memorized. Moving on to number 4. Using not just your eyes and not just your ears. This is the perfect segue from where we left off in number 3. There will be numerous occasions when only listening to your fellow collaborators may or may not give you all of the cues you need to best do your job. And of course, the opposite is also true. If you're only watching, you run the risk of not musically complementing your fellow collaborators. And lastly, we have come to number 5, the similarities between solo pianists and collaborative pianists. I think there are actually a striking number of similarities here. Now, in full disclosure, My degrees in music are from the solo performing side, but I've actually done more professional collaborative work than solo work. If we're honest with ourselves, there's an incredible amount of collab repertoire that is just as technically challenging as the greatest solo repertoire. I'm thinking of things like Mozart sonatas for piano and violin, or the Rachmaninoff cello sonata that's notorious for having a far more difficult piano part than cello part. The list could go on a very, very long way. Being a collaborative pianist doesn't mean that you have an easier job than a soloist, and in fact, in many ways, it's as difficult or even more so. Practice routines for collaborative pianists and solo pianists are equally long and strenuous. Although maybe we aren't running through the octave passage in the Liszt B minor sonata for 2 hours on end, we still have hours straight of practice and rehearsal with similar demands and similar needs for body awareness and relaxation. And finally, there are plenty of occasions in collaborative work where the pianist has full passages and phrases of solos. Definitely, if you're accompanying concerti, this could be any number of minutes of solo playing the orchestral reduction. Just because we aren't the only performer on stage doesn't mean we don't have our fair share of all eyes on you moments where the stress can really hit us. Okay, that's it for today, but we have so much more coming up about getting started practicing, and I even have a video for you of my own first hour practicing for an upcoming concert. I hope these ideas have been helpful to you. Be sure and click that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, ding the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos, and remember, practice smarter, not harder. And I'll see you next time you visit Pianist Academy.